Pat Kelsey delivered a promising update on Karter Knox's injury recovery. We'll discuss the latest. Locked on Louisville. Let's go.
You are Locked on Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome in to this Monday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode is brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free today at Odoo.com .com slash locked on. That's ODOO.com slash locked on. Coming up on today's show, we're going to tell you everything you need to know about new Louisville quarterback commit Dre'Mail. But we're going to spend the majority of this episode reacting to what Pat Kelsey had to say in his Monday morning press conference. High praise for the incoming freshman class, whether or not the Cardinals are going to look to add more players, some key injury updates, and more. We're going to begin with the injury updates, but overall, you have to take all press conferences with a grain of salt because there's a lot of coach speak. I'm not calling out any of the Cardinals coaches. This isn't about them. I'm just saying generally, you're not learning a ton from press conferences, especially not scheduled ones in the offseason. A lot of the time, you already know what you're hearing, so you can't put too much stock into everything that's being said. But you can put a lot of stock into injury updates, and that was the main takeaway from the Monday press conference was the good news surrounding Karter Knox's recovery. So Karter Knox, let me fill you in if you don't already know. Karter Knox transferring to Louisville from Arkansas, 2-year starter in the SEC for the Razorbacks, spent most of his sophomore season hurt, tore his meniscus in conference play, and had surgery to repair it in mid-February, I believe February 18th. Well, he committed to Louisville in April, so you already knew about the surgery. And this is super important because Karter Knox is projected to be one of the starters for Pat Kelsey's team next season. So you're monitoring this situation and this recovery very closely. Now, from what I've been led to believe, most meniscus recovery timelines are anywhere from 4 to 6 months. And if it's a return to impact sports, it can get up to 6 to 12 months. Now, those are just timelines. There's a lot of factors that come into play, right? The severity of the injury. Every player's body heals at a different pace. Whether or not a player is impacted by a setback. There's a lot that goes into it, right? Well, Karter Knox had the surgery to repair his meniscus in mid-February. So at this current moment, we are a little over 4 months away from that surgery date. 4 months post that surgery date. Well, Pat Kelsey said on Monday that Knox is very close to being back and that he's likely going to be fully cleared in the next week or 2 weeks. So that puts you at end of June, early July, which would be 4.5 to maybe 5 months. That's really, really good news because with Knox being a projected starter, at the very least, he's going to play a lot. He's going to be a huge player in this rotation. The season starts early November. But if he's ready to go and he's a full participant in practice in early July, well, you've got 4 full months for him to get caught up to speed, to build that chemistry with his teammates, and to develop his skill set because you're banking on Knox taking that next step in his development as one of the ways that you're going to be really good next year. So learning on June 22nd that Karter Knox is very close, you love to hear it because one thing that would suck is if the recovery was just going slow and maybe not because of a setback, but just in nature, the recovery was going slow. And here we are in August or maybe early September, and he's not a full participant in practice. And now you're kind of having to scramble at the 3 because there's not a ton of depth at the wing spot with the Cardinals. So this is great news. This is the main thing that I took away from this press conference was the optimistic outlook for Karter Knox returning to the floor. Of course, he's been going through individual skill workouts and individual strength workouts, I should clarify. Now he's going to be able to start to build that camaraderie on the court, that chemistry on the court with his teammates. That's the injury that we knew about when he joined the Cardinals via transfer. However, there was another injury that we got an update on, an injury that you might not have known it existed. Well, if you watch the Louisville practice videos that were posted over the past week or so, or a couple weeks, then you'll know that there was a certain player that wasn't on the court in these open runs. He was in the videos in the background, but not in these runs. And that is Obinna Ekezie Jr. And Louisville fans saw his absence and questioned and speculated. There's a lot of speculation as to why Obi isn't on the floor. We never really got a clear answer. Well, Pat Kelsey gave us clarity on Monday. The question basically, he was asked to speak on what he has seen from the freshman class up to this point. He mentioned some things about Isaac Ellis, about Zhang, and then that's when he went into the injury updates with Karter Knox, and then Obinna Ekezie Jr. said that Obi had shoulder surgery several months ago, and he's a little bit further off from return than Karter Knox is. Paraphrasing here, but first thing he says was that he had shoulder surgery several months ago. Obviously not ideal, but silver lining here is that the surgery was several months ago. He doesn't really give an exact date, but not able to go in the full 5v5s. And then to give you a little bit of context, Pat mentioned that Knox was close to being cleared, probably be the next week or two. And Obi's just a little bit further off than that. So what does that mean in terms of the timeline? Not sure. When is he projected to be back? Also not sure. Excuse me. But not ideal, right? Not ideal for your top 5 2027 recruit that reclassified to this year. That was a huge addition to the program, sort of at the end of the roster construction process. It's not ideal to hear that he has to miss the first couple weeks of practice. Hopefully he's able to make his return in July so he too can start to build that cohesiveness with his teammates, get back up to playing speed. Thing with shoulder injury, it shouldn't really affect lower body training as much. So should be able to build up stamina even with a shoulder injury, but does have to get into playing shape. The only difference between Knox and Obi is that Obi is obviously playing college basketball for the first time. So these reps are valuable. Even though you're playing against your own team and you're scrimmaging, getting these reps against Flory Badunga, Gabe Dines, Alvaro Folgueras, they're critical. Flory Badunga had great things to say about Obi in the press conference on Monday. Jackson Shelstad, Flory Badunga got to speak. I think it was after Pat Kelsey. But Pat Kelsey raved about the freshman class and gave high praise to that group of 3 players. He basically said that, we have to force him to get off the court. Like, he won't leave the court. And even when he's not on the court, he's eager to learn. He's asking all the questions. He's seeking clarification and more guidance and instruction from what happened in that day's practice. So he's soaking up all the information, right? He's being a sponge in practice, which is great. The work ethic is there. It's just a matter of getting him healthy, and you need him back as soon as possible because he's going to play a huge role for this team. He might not be a starter, but there's obviously an intention to play both him and Flory Badunga at the same time. John Andersek really good at making it work with 2 centers or 2 big men on the court at the same time. You saw that at Florida. And, of course, Pat Kelsey had a lot of great things to say about Coach A as well. But I thought it was pretty interesting, some of the comments that were made about the incoming freshmen. We just talked about what Pat Kelsey had to say about Obinna Ekezie Jr., but what did he say about Isaac Ellis and Zhang? And could the Cardinals still be looking to add more players? We'll tell you everything you need to know. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned into Locked On Louisville, covering your team every day. Workplace chaos can show up fast, and that's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location, because finding the right person can make all the difference, whether it's building a business or building a winning team. One great addition can have a ripple effect on everyone around them. Like I look at the United States men's national team playing in the World Cup, and Alex Freeman, who plays for Orlando City in the MLS, hasn't really played with the United States men's national team before the World Cup, but watching him through the first two games, him being great starting on the back line has been a huge addition to this team. He has contributed to multiple goals through the first two games. The best organizations aren't trying to look at every possible option. They're focused on identifying the people who truly match what they're looking for, like Alex Freeman matches exactly what Mauricio Pochettino needed on the back line of that United States defense. So spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, time, more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed right here at Locked On Louisville. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Get your Cardinals fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without the interruptions. Click the link in the show notes or go to lockedonlouisville.supercast.com to claim your free trial. So we're continuing to react to Pat Kelsey's press conference on Monday morning. And like I said, you have to take things with a grain of salt because a lot of it is coach speak. Right. Of course, a coach is going to hype up their players during a press conference. Of course, a coach is going to hype up their coaching staff on a press conference. You're not going to learn a ton, but I think that there's a fine line, right? Like, I think that you have to be cautiously optimistic about these two players because they are both incoming freshmen. But with the way that Pat Kelsey has talked about them, you might be led to believe that both are going to play a role for this team in some capacity this season. Isaac Ellis has been a player that Pat Kelsey has talked highly of since he signed with Louisville, the Cardinals' 2027 point guard commit out of the Overtime Elite League. He's originally from North Carolina, played, I think, just 2 hours, a little under 2 hours away from Winthrop, where Kelsey used to be the head coach. Ellis ended up reclassifying back into the 2026 class and will play for the Cardinals next season. And what PK had to say about Isaac, I thought was pretty interesting. He said he called him a bulldog. He made a point to say he might lead the country in practice fights. Like fights in practice, obviously not fist fighting, but if you've played competitive sports, you know that tempers can flare, right? You get competitive and there's a lot of effort and things can get tense. And sometimes you get into some verbal shouting matches or look, you know, if you played sports, right? Leads the country in practice fights. Like if there's a ball on the ground, you're going to have to pry that ball out of Isaac Ellis's hands, is what Pat Kelsey said. And that's the type of player that you need. Like, I feel like that perfectly, like that that style of play, that willingness to go after every loose ball with 110% effort, like that is the type of culture that Pat Kelsey is trying to build here at Louisville, that you're not going to outwork us type of style of play. And Ellis, like, sure, there might be some questions about his defense. There might be some questions about whether or not he can play off ball at the Power 5 level at a truly high level. There are questions about his size for a true number one point guard. But one thing that you really can't take away is the desire to be great, like the effort that a player plays with. Like the way that Pat Kelsey talks about Isaac Ellis, it's probably not hard to see that Ellis is going to play in some capacity. Now, is he the backup point guard? No, because PK also has high expectations for London Johnson. But I think that you're looking at a player who could play anywhere between, 5 to maybe 8 minutes a game off the bench, end of the rotation type player. And that's a guy that if the shot is falling, then he could be a real asset for this team in minutes where, Jackson Shellstad isn't on the court, because I do question the fit with Shellstad and Ellis on the court from a defensive standpoint. Zhang, I am super excited to watch play in a Cardinals jersey this upcoming season. If you're an everydayer of the show, first off, thank you for making us part of your daily routine. But you know that I have been a huge fan of Bo's game. I thought that he was a true diamond in the rough when Louisville got an official visit from him. And then when they got his commitment, I broke that point down even further, saying that I think that because he just came to the United States right before his senior season, went from a top 250 player to now a top 60 player, 6'8" wing that does a good job of putting the ball on the floor and getting downhill. But I think that he might just be one of the best shooters in the 2026 class. And Pat Kelsey kind of backed it up. He said he's a strong physical guard that is not shy or hesitant at all to shoot the basketball. And in this system, and he mentioned that, after the second year, when some things didn't go their way, you had to kind of tweak some things. But the system is going to be very similar to what you're used to. You're going to play fast, still going to shoot threes. I think Zhang is going to get playing time, like significant playing time, as maybe that backup three or rotating with Deshane Montgomery at the three. I think the Dayton transfer can play at that wing spot. But I could see a situation where Zhang is that backup three. 6'7", 6'8", is physically ready to play next year in terms of from like a frame standpoint. But has the three-point shooting to allow him to find his way on the floor in a significant way this season. Now, is he a starting caliber guy? I don't think so year one, but that's not what you brought him here to be. I think he's going to play a key role in the 26-27 season, maybe more so than Isaac Ellis, but Pat Kelsey raved about his freshman class. Now, he was also asked, and this was the first question, about whether or not Louisville could be looking to add more players. Pat Kelsey gave the most generic coaching answer of all time. Paraphrasing here, but he basically said that you turn over all of the rocks and do anything you can to make your team better. So it was a non-committal answer. He didn't say yes or no, but he told you what you probably do know, and that's that any chance they're going to have to make the team better and it just makes sense for the program, they're going to do so. That relates to Dusty May taking the Dallas Mavericks job, leaving the Michigan Wolverines, and now you have a roster of some really talented players that could end up going to the transfer portal. Could Louisville be in the mix for some of those players? We're going to monitor that situation, and if that is the case, we'll discuss later on in the show. But it's worth mentioning that the Cardinals did go after Milan Momcilovic. Now, they didn't offer as much money as Kentucky did, but could that rainy day fund be available for a certain Michigan player or a couple players? Maybe. I think that if Louisville has an option to add some more talent, I would definitely say that they should do so. Now, Pat Kelsey did mention that he's not going to be able to go to the NBA draft because there's a limited availability in terms of seating for Michael Brown Jr. Mentioned that Michael's got family going, so Pat Kelsey's not able to go, and that's kind of sparked a reaction on social media. And I'm not going to really entertain that a ton. Only thing that I'm going to say is this. First off, I'm kind of done talking about the situation. It's over and done with. It is what it is. But I feel like depending on which side of the argument you're on, like if you were one of those people that said, you know what, it was just a really unfortunate situation. You can't hurt or you can't help the back injury. It's a tough injury to deal with. Wish him the best of luck, and I'm really going to cheer for him at the next level. Then you're probably one of those people that said, yeah, that's a nothing burger, right? There's just not enough space. But if you're one of those people that think that Michael sat out intentionally, or there were reasons why he sat out and he wasn't like fully hurt or anything like that, then you probably weren't happy to see this. Really, basically what I'm saying is that whatever you believed before what Pat Kelsey said, chances are you're using that to support what you already believe. I'm at the point where it's over and done with. Wish him the very best luck in the NBA and hope that he serves as a great ambassador for this program. That's all that I can ask. But wish him the best of luck moving forward. So that's the majority of what we took away from the press conference. I do, however, want to discuss a new football commitment. The Cards finally have another quarterback in the 2027 class. And when we come back, we'll tell you everything that you need to know about Dre'Mail Carruthers, the number one quarterback in the state of Kentucky. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales to accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone work together towards the same goal. I feel like with this golden generation for the United States men's national team, they've been so talented, but they've underachieved the past couple of years because that talent really hasn't worked together, because I don't feel like there was a structure and system in place to maximize skill sets and build that chemistry. And Mauricio Pochettino has done a great job of getting all this talent for the United States soccer team working together. And what's happened? They have the most points in group play in a World Cup since 1930. And they've already won the group with a game in hand. So that's the name of the game. Great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at Odoo.com /lockedon. That's ODOO.com /lockedon. Carnation, thank you so much for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a comment in the YouTube section below. Both are great ways to help this show continue to grow. Show is also free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Continuing through the off-season month of June, don't forget 3 episodes every week in the month of June. July, going to have more episodes like we are used to from a weekly standpoint. But we're going to conclude today's show by telling you everything you need to know about the newest commitment for the Louisville football program. Now, our last show that we had on this podcast was early Thursday morning. Well, Dre'Mail Carruthers committed to the Cardinals on Thursday, and I wanted to make sure that I discussed this recruitment on the next episode, so I apologize for the delay. But Dre'Mail Carruthers, 6'4", 200-pound quarterback, he's from Owensboro, Kentucky, chose the Cardinals on Thursday over schools like North Carolina and USF. Now, Carruthers made an official visit to the Cardinals back on June 5th. That was the weekend after He took an OV to North Carolina, and it seemed like the Tar Heels might be the team to beat in this recruitment. Well, things started to trend towards Jeff Brom's program, and then when a decision date was announced, it seemed like the writing was on the wall and that Carruthers would be staying home in the state of Kentucky, where he is the number one quarterback in the Bluegrass State in the 2027 class. According to 24/7 Sports Composite, he's the 10th best player in the state, number 629 player in the country, 37th best quarterback in the class this past season as a first-year starter for Owensboro Catholic High School. First year as a starter, passed for 4,000 yards, 67% completion percentage, 49 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. Very solid production. Well, he played in Kentucky's 2A classification, which isn't the greatest. It's not 6A, right, which is what most of the schools in Louisville, like Trinity, Male, St. X, Manual, that's the classification that they are in. Owensboro Catholic is in 2A, but they were able to make the state championship game in year one of Dre'Mail Carruthers' career as a starter. Now, Andrew Ivins of 24/7 Sports mentions that he had a really solid outing at the Elite 11 Indianapolis Regional and has looked pretty solid at camps. Mainly things that I'll mention here: does a good job of progressing through his reads, is able to go through his first options and hit the check down if he needs to. Solid footwork, solid accuracy. Matt McGavick of 24/7, I'm sorry, not 24/7 Sports, Sports Illustrated, Louisville Sports Illustrated site. Sorry, Matt. Says he has that like drop in the bucket type accuracy, and I couldn't agree more. Right, like he is a guy that can just put the ball in certain windows. Really solid placement. The only main question is A, level of competition. How's that going to translate to the ACC? And B, maybe more important, is the arm strength. If he's able to get a little bit stronger, does that arm strength improve? Like, it's not bad. It's just not at an elite level. Well, Carruthers is a taller quarterback that Jeff Brom has usually gone after, 6'4". I think he's a very solid developmental quarterback. And what I'll say here is that the Cardinals lost the commitment from Jack Sorge months ago. And there were some questions as to whether or not the Cardinals were going to spend for a top quarterback. And I make this point time and time again. Louisville's budget, the majority is budgeted for the transfer portal and retaining their top talent. The rest is for the high school ranks. Now, they have increased their high school recruiting budget, but it's still not at the top half, or I'm sorry, the top part of the ACC. It might be the top half, but even then, there might be some question marks. They're going to pick and choose when to spend a lot of money for a prospect. It's got to be a player that they believe can come in right away and play, because if not, they're using the high school recruiting ranks to get players that it might take them a couple years to see the field, but these are players that aren't going to cost as much that they feel like they can develop. Now, as it relates to the quarterback position, they've gone to the portal. Each of the 3 seasons before this one, and even going into this season, 4 years of a new transfer portal starting quarterback. Well, Briggs Cherry is the QB1 of the future. That is the way that the staff sees it. Briggs Cherry is the guy, and he will be a redshirt freshman after this season. So you don't have to add an elite quarterback every single class. It seems like with this one, they want a quarterback that they believe can be very, very good and can develop. He's just not a guy that's going to cost an insane amount of money just to be an automatic backup for maybe multiple seasons, right? So I really like this commitment that they've landed. I think that Dre'Mail Carruthers has the talent to be a pretty solid quarterback in the Power Four. It's all going to depend on how he can develop. But again, the Cardinals are likely going to turn the keys over to Briggs Cherry at some point in the next year or couple of years, because don't forget, Lincoln Kienholz technically has 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. So he could be the starter for 2 seasons, and then Briggs Cherry steps in, and at that point, you see what I'm getting at here is that getting an elite quarterback, you question, because it seems like with the way that they are kind of budgeting and getting their recruiting class built up, it's very methodical. But that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon. Go Cards.